All right, guys. So yesterday I made a video about some trellises I built in the Saduum West Community Garden, and it was mentioned to me that you didn't really explain how to build the trellis. So I'm making this video to make sure that people at least get a better understanding of how to build it. For me as a carpenter, and I'm no master carpenter, but as a carpenter, it was a no-brainer to me just looking at it how to build it. But I'll make sure that I do a decent job at explaining it. So first, let's talk about the tools you need. Um, the first tool is a speed square. Speed square is if you're gonna build anything with wood, even with metal. This is a phenomenal tool. It's not that expensive. You're gonna need to invest in one of these. All right. Whether you're just building a raised bed or you're building something more complicated like a trellis, a well-designed trellis, or maybe you want a workstation like this, you're gonna need a speed square. All right, and we'll talk about using that later. Um, at least two clamps. We need these clamps to clamp the trellis posts onto the raised bed, and then we can attach it with screws, right? But you're gonna need these unless you have a couple of people laying around who can hold the trellis for you. Um, a hammer. You may need to tap things into place. You might, if you're repurposing wood, you might need to use the claw of the hammer to remove nails or beat the nail out. One of the two. This is always useful in many different applications. You can pry things up. You can even sit something on the hammer's head if you need it to be a little bit higher, depending on the distances you're working with. But this is always useful. A screw gun, preferably with a decent sized battery. This is a 5 amp battery. You don't need a DeWalt screw gun. I've been I've worked with Ryobi tools, Rigid, um, what is it, Hercules brand, which is the Harbor Freight brand. So you're gonna need that. You're gonna need an appropriate bit for the screws you're using. So let's talk about that. The screws that I prefer to use is Deckmate. These are these are ceramic coated. So if you look at them, ceramic coating, that means they'll be able to deal with outside temperatures, moisture better than your uncoated nails. Okay, and just hopefully you can see that a little bit better. That's a star bit. Okay, so that's a T 25. That's what I use. Okay, this is optional. This is a drill gun. As far as you can pre-drill holes depending on the size of wood. It helps prevent the wood from splitting when you impact drive the nail, right? But this is optional. You don't have to have this, but just so that you know, you can make sure that your bit, not this bit, this is a huge bit, then make sure your bit is smaller in diameter than the screw, okay? That's what you want to look at. It has to be smaller than the diameter of the screw. This one won't work. I do have a bit set, so that's how that works. Then we have a circular saw. It doesn't have to be this circular saw. This is my preference because it goes with the batteries I have a ton of, and doing commercial carpentry, this works better for me. You can use a Ryobi, you can use any other brand you have. The most important thing is to make sure that your blade is not dull or damaged. Make sure that you're using the appropriate blade, wood blade or metal blade or what have you. Have to make sure you're using the appropriate blade. Otherwise, what you do is dull the blade, and then you can't use it on the stuff that it was designed to use it for. You don't need a chop saw. You don't need a table saw. This will work just fine for this project and many projects actually. And the thing about a circular saw like this, it requires the more powerful batteries. So stick with something basic. This is, like I said, this is 2x2 wood construction. So you don't need this saw. This saw is actually overkill, but I prefer it. A measuring tape, essential for carpentry, essential for any construction in general. You need to be able to make proper measurements, right? Obviously, no brainers, pencils. Um, Maybe you need some sheets of paper to map out your design. If you're doing this from scratch, if you're doing a design you found online, then you have nothing to worry about. The last thing is optional as well, but it's who I am as a person, a speaker. I like music. Helps me just get in the zone, get in the groove. You know, you could just use your cell phone if you want. Play some music. Play some music. Okay. So let's talk about other material. Let me move some stuff out of the way here. You're gonna need at least 4 of these to do the design that I'm talking about. You're gonna need at least 4. I'm gonna map some of this out on paper first so you can see it, because I'm not gonna completely construct this project because I don't have the wood here present. But I'm gonna try to do my best to display what you need to do. All right. Go ahead and cut that. All right. Let's bring the camera in closer. All right. So the pieces of wood we're using again is 2x2, and these are 8 foot long. Okay. The first thing that I do when making a trellis, I want to think about how tall am I and how high do I want to reach when dealing with this. Do I have a ladder? I specifically designed this simple trellis because I didn't want to use a ladder and I didn't want to reach too high. So the first thing I did was I cut off 2 feet on 2 of these posts, okay? That gives me, okay, so this is what I end up with, 2 6-foot posts, okay? Remember I said you need 4 8-footers. You need 4 8-footers. So if I cut 2 foot off of 2 of them, I end up with 2 6-foot posts. Now when we're talking about the top beam, okay, again, this is 8 foot. The top beam, I want to think about how I'm going to position my top beam and my post. So one of the things I need to mention here is my raised beds, typically, not all of them, but they are, and I'm going to do this so you can see it, they are 8 foot by 2 foot. Some of them are 8 foot by 3 foot. Some of them are a little bit wider than 8 foot, okay? But they're 8 foot by 2 foot on the outside dimension. That means I need to consider the inside dimension because I want to attach my trellis to the inside. You can attach your trellis to the outside, but that's going to change what you do, okay? But I want to attach my trellis somewhere here in the inside, my 2 posts there. So I need to account for that distance. The standard, now my raised beds are made out of 2x4. So your standard 2x4 is actually 1.5 inches in width, okay? So what I do is I come back this distance 1.5 inches, okay? 1.5 inches, and I do that on both sides, okay? This is 1.5 inches, and I put a pencil mark, and I'm gonna show that soon, but I put a pencil mark there. That lets me know, okay, that remember this is 8 foot and this is 8 foot. So my post is gonna go on that side of the line. On the right hand side, my post is gonna go on that side of the line. So I know where my posts are going. And I'm gonna attach my posts like so. Okay, and I'm gonna screw in, I'm gonna attach, I'm gonna screw from the top. Okay, you don't need a ton of screws. I'm gonna show you why in a second, but I use one screw on each side. So I take each one of these 6-foot posts and I attach them where I made that 1.5 inch mark. That's gonna allow me to put those posts in the inside of the bed. Okay, these 2-foot pieces, we're not gonna throw those away. We're gonna take the 2-footer, take this 2-footer, and we're going to make a 45-degree angle on those 2-footers and cut it with the circular saw. So we're gonna use our square, a handy square. We're gonna mark, boom. We're gonna put it on the other side. We're gonna mark, boom, and we're gonna cut for braces. And those braces are gonna just snug up here to the nice and flush. We're not gonna measure anything. We could use geometry to make sure we put them in the perfect location, but that's not really necessary for this project. And so that's how we get the basic structure. As far as the brace in the middle, so let's bring this down a little bit. As far as the brace in the middle, what we do is we think about the fact that this is 1.5 inch offset. This 2x2 is actually 1.5 inch. This dimension, okay, is 1.5 inch. So that means my brace in the middle, I can either overlap, but I didn't want to overlap. I wanted it in the inside. So in order to do that, I had to account for 1.5 inch and 1.5 inch, which is 3 inches. And I have to account for 1.5 inch and another 1.5 inch on this side. So I need to take my 8-footer, my last 8-footer, and I need to cut off 6 inches, a total of 6 inches. Therefore, my piece should be cut at 7'6". So this inside brace that I'm gonna put here is going to be 7'6". Okay, 7'6", and that should keep everything square and tight. Everything square and tight. Okay. Okay. So remember, we talked about taking 2 feet off of 2 pieces, right? 2 pieces of the lumber. Not a big deal. Handy dandy measuring tape. It's already going to tell you 2 feet, or you should know a foot is 12 inches. 12 plus 12 is 24. You're going to mark. That square becomes essential. You're going to take that mark. You're going to square it off so you can cut a straight line. We're going to take this, our circular saw, and if we have a table to work with or whatever, we're just going to slightly hang that off, line up, and then cut. I'm not going to cut this. I need this lumber for something else. But you're going to do that twice. It's that simple. As far as our top beam, when we're talking about this, our top beam, where we said there's an offset of 1.5 inches on both sides. Okay? Again, simple. You're going to take your measuring tape. You're going to mark 1.5 inches here. You're going to mark the other end. You're going to use your square. Square it off. You're going to put an X where you want your post to go so you don't forget. You're going to do the same thing on the other end. Put an X where you want your post to go. This piece doesn't get cut. This is our top beam. You can even, if you want to, you can write top on it so you know what it is. You want to prefab these pieces before you assemble them because it's going to be easier to assemble these on the ground. Okay? Now, Um, when it comes to our beam in the middle, our brace in the middle, what we're gonna do is, again, so long as your wood is square, you're gonna just look for 7'6". We already did the calculations. 7'6". We're gonna take our square. We're gonna mark that. And once you have a mark, again, same deal. We know we need to cut this. So we're gonna hang that off our workstation a little bit. Line up real nice with our circular saw. And we're gonna cut, okay? Again, I'm not cutting because I need this wood for another project, but I did want to show you or give you a better idea of the process. Now, as far as the top braces, I'm gonna grab a smaller piece of wood real quick and give you an idea. All right, so this is a piece of scrap I had that already has a 45 degree angle. Again, this is where the square is critical. Then if you look at this, you know, it's pretty close. Not perfect. Much in carpentry isn't perfect. So again, in order for this brace to work, let me see, give me 1 second. In order for this brace to work, again, we have to look at this angle. And if I get one more piece of lumber here, so we have to look at this. If we're going to simulate what we have going on here, again, this is going to help you. If you can do that, you can see what angles you need to have. If that's a 45, then we know that this needs to be cut this way. So we're going to put our square on here the right way. We'll make sure we're going to look at that, right? That's about right. We're going to line this square up with this edge. We're going to mark that nice and strong mark so we can see it, right? And that's what we're going to cut. If this was a totally square piece, it would be the same thing. We're going to look at what we're looking at, right? And we can mark underneath. So we could, that's one way we could do it. We could mark underneath to kind of get the angle, okay? Just to get the angle. But the fact of the matter is, it's very simple. If this was square, you do your 45 in the inside so it can lay against the piece like this. And you do your 45 on the inside on the other end so it can lay against this piece. I'll show you in a second. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to move this out the way. Put that there, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this and show you how it works. Okay. Now again, so with the brace, what we're doing is we're taking this and we're not worrying about perfection here, just trying to get it close. And again, I told you this edge was off a little bit. It wasn't quite 45. I think I was cutting it at a different angle for a different project. But you're gonna match it up as close as you can, and then you're gonna put your screws in here and here. You're gonna do that on both sides with your 2-foot pieces, okay? Okay, so you can see the offset I was talking about. That's the offset, the 1.5 inches. And my poster here is screwed in from the top. My braces, as I showed you, they're screwed in from these positions. My middle brace, just to keep everything in tight. Now what I didn't talk about is you can set the height for this, but you want to make sure you set the height for this middle brace at the same height at both sides. I think I chose like 32 or something to that effect. So I chose 33. That's what I chose. You can choose anything. It all depends on the material you're going to use to finish the trellis. If you're going to use a mesh, you can do it for the height of the mesh, so you have something you can staple it into, or use zip ties or something. You just want this at a height where it's useful. This is going to be useful for me because of what I intend to do. I don't want to talk about that in the video. This video, I'll talk about it in another video. But this is the height that's good for me. The other one on the other side is actually set at a different height because that's a different project. These are sugar snap peas. Over there is cucumber. So again, if I get out the way, you can see the same thing on both sides. So remember we talked about these clamps. What you're gonna do is you can either have someone help you or you can do this alone. That's the reason for the clamps. You're gonna need the clamps either way, but the clamps can help you do this alone. You stand this up and you put it in position. Now remember I told you I had raised beds that are wider than 8 foot. This is an example. This is wider than 8 foot. But on the other one, these posts match exactly at both ends of the raised bed. What you're gonna do is, after you stand it up, you're gonna do your best to hold it up and clamp this in there, and that's gonna hold it up temporarily till you can get over to the other side and do the same thing. But you just stand it up. Most of us have seen those the videos of the Amish people standing up a wall, or maybe you've seen a construction project, people standing up the wood frame walls. It's the same premise. This is very, very light. You can stand it up on your own, get it in place where you want it, clamp one side, and it's not gonna fall on you. You're gonna hurry up, and you're not gonna take your time about it though. You're gonna hurry up and get to the other side, and you're gonna clamp. One of the beautiful things is, you know that this wood is 1.5 inches and this is 1.5 inches. You could take your measuring tape and get this a little bit wider than 3 inches, and that will help you set that faster without worrying about it falling. Then from there, you're gonna take your screw gun. You're gonna screw one screw in the back. Once you screw that one screw in the back, you're gonna loosen this. It's gonna wobble a little bit. You're gonna put a second screw in there. There's only 2 screws in this. No, it's not gonna survive a hurricane, but it's gonna hold some sugar snap peas. That's the point. We're not gonna spend a whole bunch of money on this simple project. And where I am, we don't get hurricanes. We get the remnants of the tropical storms. So anyway, guys, that's the basics of how to get this simple trellis done. How you finish the trellis, what material you put in the middle depends on what kind of fruit you're growing. Sugar snap peas are very, very light. Cucumbers aren't super heavy. If you're growing something like a squash or a melon, you're going to need a stronger trellis than this, okay? Or you can use this, but you have to have braces on the back. You have to make the shape more triangular for the strength. God bless and good day, people. So this is an example. This is not a piece cut perfectly. This is a piece of scrap I just had laying around. Again, I didn't want to cut anything because I have other projects that I need to work on, but I did want to show you. So again, if you're going to make this brace, you're going to take your square. This is a 45-degree angle. This is 90. You should know that. If you don't know, now you know. Basic geometry. This is a 45, 45, 90. Forgive me. I'm dropping my measuring tape. It's a 45, 45, 90. So you can mark a 45-degree angle using this edge. And this edge helps you line up. So you're going to slide the square to match with the corner of that 2-foot section that you cut off each of the 6-footers. Okay, you're using all the wood you have. You're not going by extra wood just so you can make these braces here. You're just going to mark that 45-degree angle. and I probably should have gotten a marker so you can see this better. But you're gonna mark that 45 degree, okay? No different than this. You have a 45-degree angle. You're gonna take your circular saw, and again, you're gonna line up with that mark. You're gonna cut it. Now, I just realized that I put that backwards. But the point is, you're gonna make sure that this is right. So let me show you how to do it the correct way. Go. Thank you for watching our video. We appreciate your time and we know that your time is valuable. We'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel so that you can be updated as soon as we release content. We'd also like to invite you to look at our 2 fundraiser links that you can find down in the description below. In those links, you'll find a fundraiser for our Adullam West Community Garden, which is our main initiative at the Baltimore Carpenters Project. The second fundraiser is so that we can launch a Community Carpenters Youth Program where we train middle schoolers to learn carpentry and then create additional gardens to exist alongside of our Adullam West and become a network of community gardens here in Baltimore. Again, I thank you for your time. Good day and God bless.